Good morning, everybody. Tuesday morning, week 8 of the NFL season coming up, and 49ers are in very good position despite some of their injury concerns and the stuff that's happened in the first 7 weeks of the year. They've set themselves up pretty well for the final 10 games of the season. One of the things that kind of came out of the game on Sunday was just how well the defense has been playing almost against all odds when you consider all the young guys that they've turned to. Starting off with the defensive line, the 3 draft picks that are playing significant snaps. And now, early on, it was CJ West who opened eyes first week at training camp and early in training camp. And then it was like, oh my gosh, what's Alfred Collins? Is he going to be able to contribute here as a rookie? And what you've seen is it's all kind of sorted itself out. Michael Williams being a staple of that defensive line, starting at defensive end in base situations, moving inside, rush the passer, nickel downs, and then Collins really stepping up. And I suppose being the second best of the 49ers rookies. When you think of Michael Williams has probably been the 49ers' best rookie. And it's, like I said, it's kind of sorted itself out. Upton Stout playing some legitimate snaps for the team. And so the injuries, the young guys coming in, the backups, it really has been a job well done through 7 games for Robert Saleh and the defensive staff to just get those guys ready to play. And I think, the game Sunday night with the Falcons was just really interesting, and I think sets the team on a very good path because it was the first game without Fred Warner, and Tatum Bethune stepped in and played very well. He had a command of the defense. Everybody seemed to be on the same page, and the defense was flying around and making plays. And I think that, the more the 49ers hang in this thing and win games, the more attention Robert Saleh is going to get. Probably more attention that will be cast on the Jets for firing him 5 games into his 4th season as a coach. And obviously things did not go well for the Jets while he was there. Almost all of that had to do with kind of mismanagement of the team from above Robert Saleh, but also they could never figure out their quarterback situation. And then with the 2-3 record and still very much in the race last year, they get rid of Saleh, spends the season kind of on the sideline helping out his old friend, Matt LaFleur, with the Packers. And now you see where the Jets are. They're 0-7, a horrendous team. And you start to think about next year, how Robert Saleh is going to be viewed around the NFL. And I think the easy thing to say is that he will be a head coach in the NFL next season. And I don't necessarily doubt that, but also I don't know that it is a certainty. And the reason why is because Robert Saleh is a defensive-minded coach and a very good defensive coordinator. And I think under the right circumstances, he could be a very good head coach in the NFL. But the thing working against him is just that he is a defensive coach. And so many of the teams that could be looking for head coaches will be wanting to bring in an offensive head coach. And the reason is a lot of times teams that are really bad have bad quarterback play. And teams that are really bad are going to be drafting very high. And that means that whether it's the number 1 pick or the 2nd pick or the 3rd pick or whatever, top 10 pick, very well could be a quarterback. And the dilemma that faces general managers or owners would be if you bring in a defensive minded head coach to help develop and get the most out of a young quarterback. Well, it's not the head coach that's going to be working hand in hand with that quarterback. So the big hire for a defensive head coach is to get an offensive mind who can come in and run the offensive side of it. When Saleh went to the Jets, he brought in Mike LaFleur, formerly of the 49ers staff, who's passing game coordinator with the 49ers under Kyle Shanahan. That didn't last very long, and he had to go in different directions to find an offensive coordinator. The problem is whenever you have a defensive-minded head coach and you have a young quarterback, if that quarterback develops quickly and becomes a really good player, then what happens? The offensive coordinator that is most responsible for developing that quarterback goes to the top of everybody's head coaching candidate list for the following year. So if he does a really good job with a rookie quarterback, guess what? He's going to have a head coaching opportunity somewhere else the following season. And now the defensive-minded head coach is back to where he was, trying to find another offensive coach to take over and continue the development of that young quarterback. So there are different philosophies on this. And I know I've spoken to Robert Saleh in the past about that. He thinks that that's hogwash. And if he gets into an interview, which he will this offseason, he will present the case for this is how you build out the structure of making sure that a young quarterback's development continues year after year after year, that there's some continuity there. So that's why I don't necessarily think it's a foregone conclusion that Robert Saleh will be a head coach next year, but it is definitely up there. And I think that he will get a lot of attention quite clearly. But, as far as the 49ers, I think Kyle Shanahan knew this from the get-go, or that was in his mind. Like, hey, if he does the kind of job that the 49ers hoped he would do, then of course he's going to get a lot of head coaching interest around the NFL next hiring cycle. And so that's why they brought in Gus Bradley. Gus Bradley is the assistant head coach of defense for the 49ers. He is very well schooled and grew up in the NFL ranks under this philosophy that Shanahan brought with him the first time he hired Robert Saleh. Remember, back in 2017, Kyle Shanahan hired Robert Saleh to his staff without having a defensive coordinator and not naming him defensive coordinator. And he went after several defensive coaches, Gus Bradley included, to be the defensive coordinator. When all else failed, Shanahan knew the system he wanted, and he knew kind of the pecking order of defensive coordinators he wanted to install that system. But it wasn't until several other people fell through that Robert Saleh became the defensive coordinator. And, even though people were, some media members were calling for the 49ers to fire Robert Saleh after the first year, fire Robert Saleh after the second year, Shanahan and the 49ers stayed with him. And that's why Saleh decided to come back to the 49ers this year, because he remembered that loyalty that Kyle Shanahan, John Lynch, and the 49ers organization showed him when they could have easily moved on. So what are the situations going to look like around the NFL next offseason? Well, we know the Tennessee Titans will be looking for a new head coach. They fired Brian Callahan a couple weeks ago, or was it a week ago, and hired or promoted Mike McCoy to the interim position. Tennessee, you think, would be looking for an offensive-minded head coach because they just invested the number 1 overall pick in Cam Ward. Cleveland, are they going to be looking for a new coach? Quite possibly. Kevin Stefanski, offensive coach. The thing with the Browns is they really don't have somebody that I would consider the surefire quarterback of the future. Is it Dylan Gabriel? Could be. Is it Shedeur Sanders? Could be. But they could be looking to draft a quarterback with their first pick in this draft. Miami, more than likely, will be looking for a new head coach. Mike McDaniel really seems to be struggling. The Dolphins are really struggling. And what's their situation? Well, they have Tua Tagovailoa, but is he the guy? I would think that a new coach would come in and maybe want a different quarterback, maybe be ready to move on. And then there's the New York Giants with Brian Daboll. Jackson Dart is the quarterback. And I'm not sure that the Giants are for certain going to move on from Brian Daboll. It depends on how they finish the season. If Jackson Dart and the Giants show some signs of improvement and signs of promise, I think they stick with Brian Daboll. He's a good coach. He's a good offensive coach. They lost a horrible game Sunday against the Broncos, but I don't think that's going to spell the end. It's all about how Jackson Dart improves throughout the season. Again, if the Giants were to move on from Brian Daboll, would they want a defensive-minded head coach in charge of Jackson Dart from this point forward? I kind of doubt it. And then the other team that I think could be looking for a new head coach after this season, or maybe late in the season, New York Giants. Aaron Glenn just not getting it done. But of course, the Jets, no way they're going to hire Robert Saleh. And they don't have a quarterback either right now. Justin Fields isn't very good. Tyrod Taylor, kind of seen as a good backup and maybe nothing more than that. So that's why I think, as great as Saleh is doing, and if I were an owner, I would have no problem hiring somebody like Robert Saleh, or let's just say it, I would have no problem hiring Robert Saleh because I appreciate what he stands for. I appreciate his leadership skills. I appreciate his vision. And I also think that he is well respected enough to be able to put together a good coaching staff. And that's something that I think harms a lot of first-time head coaches, is that they don't necessarily have the cachet around the NFL to be able to go out and get somebody opposite of their area of expertise to run that side of the show. So in other words, if you're an offensive-minded head coach, can you go out and get a strong defensive coordinator, somebody that you can turn it over to and you have no issues with? And then the other side, if you're a defensive-minded head coach, can you go out there and get an offensive-minded or an offensive coordinator that just runs that side of the building and you don't have to worry about it? So that's where I think Shanahan, by and large, has been so good, is that when he was hired by the 49ers, he did have a certain level of cachet where he is able to go get some really good assistant coaches. It didn't quite work out exactly the way he wanted on the defensive side, but it ended up working out very well. Getting Robert Saleh, he became a head coach, and then DeMeco Ryans, he became a head coach. And then, of course, once you've lost a couple of coordinators in a row like that, it becomes more and more difficult because you don't necessarily have that person in waiting. But I do think that they have that person in waiting now in Gus Bradley as somebody who would more than likely take over for Robert Saleh. Now, I say that, but also want to caution at this point, I don't think they could never have anything in writing. They could never have kind of a handshake agreement, a wink, wink, nod, nod thing like, hey, if Saleh leaves, you're the next guy. But I mean, that would be the clear path that you'd think the team would go through. They would have to conduct outside interviews, and maybe in interviews with other people or maybe other candidates become available. If Saleh were to leave, maybe there's somebody out there that he would think could be better than Gus Bradley in that role. But I would say that unlike when DeMeco Ryans left and they ended up hiring Steve Wilkes, unlike when Steve Wilkes got fired after 1 year and they ended up hiring Nick Sorensen. There was never really considered just the slam dunk. This is the next guy on the staff who takes over. I guess Sorensen, to a degree, would have been that guy. But after 1 year and the way the defense just didn't get much better, and late in the year, everything kind of fell apart, coupled with the number of strong defense coordinators that were out there, that prompted the move. And then Shanahan had to show a lot of patience to hang with Robert Saleh, not panic, not go get somebody else. And that worked out to a very high degree. And that's where the 49ers are right now, 5-2, with the defense carrying a great deal of the load through this 5-2 season. So those are my thoughts on Robert Saleh. Is he going to be a strong head coaching candidate in the 2026 coaching cycle? 100% he's going to be a strong coaching candidate. He wants to be a head coach. He wants to make amends for, the 3+ seasons he had with the New York Jets. But I just don't know that it's as 100% a slam dunk that he's the head coach as we all like to think he is right now, based on how well the 49ers are playing. All right, so I'm going to throw on my my readers and see what you guys have, what you're talking about here in the comments section, and try to hit as many comments as I can. I'm not sure exactly how long I'm going to stay on this. I think we've already been going 17 minutes. Okay, here we go. We got an Eddie De Niro, hoping they re-sign Eddie Money. Do you know if they're working on it? I don't know that they're working on it, but I would say at this point, a very strong possibility that Eddie Pinheiro is with the team more than just this one season. If they aren't working on it, they should be. And I think that would be a move that would be very well received from the fan base, to go ahead and lock him up to a multi-year contract. He's gotten off to a really good start. And it's kind of funny, though. The one thing that, when he came to the 49ers that, I was told was that, well, he's accurate. He doesn't have a very strong leg, but he's accurate. Well, he's been nails from 50+ yards in his entire career, and this season, obviously, in particular. So, yeah, I would think that Eddie Pinheiro will be more than just a one-and-done guy for the 49ers. What else do we have here? Saleh is going to get interviews in the offseason. I don't think there's any question about that. I would think that, no matter what kind of money the 49ers can offer Robert Saleh to stay, I just don't know that that's realistic. Like I said, I think Robert Saleh wants to be a head coach. Everybody's different. Some guys are a head coach and never really yearn for that again. Other guys are head coaches and think, I want to prove myself. I know I can do this. Learn so much the first go round. I know Steve Spagnuolo is one of those guys that, has kind of talked about a career coordinator who did have a stint with the Rams as head coach. That didn't work out. And now he just seems to be really good and really locked into being a defensive coordinator. I don't think he's really on head coaching radars anymore, and that works for him. But I think for Robert Saleh, I think he wants to be a head coach, and hard to blame him. Why not offer Saleh a long-term contract at low head coach money? Well, just because that's exactly what I talked about. Like, low head coaching money is still not head coaching money. And for some people, it's not about the money. I think Robert Saleh sees himself as somebody who can be a really good head coach. And, if you're only a coordinator, which is obviously there's only 32 defensive coordinators in the NFL, but that's a prestigious job, obviously, but I don't think you fully get your due as a head coach well, both monetarily and exposure wise, reputation wise, until you succeed as a head coach. And so I think that's the attractiveness for Robert Saleh, to run his own ship, and to win a lot of games and strive to be a Super Bowl winning head coach. Hey, James. Hello there. Hello, everybody. Is it good? Being a head coach, let's see here. A lot of, yeah, being a head coach is a completely different job. It's a CEO. You don't get to focus on what you actually do. And I do think that Robert Saleh sees himself as a CEO coach, a guy who can oversee an entire operation. I think that's why I think Shanahan Shanahan might be a better head coach than an offensive coordinator, uh, because I think he's good at hiring staffs. I think he's good at letting his coaches coach, and he just has a really good feel for both sides of the ball, and hitting the right tones in his meetings. And I think Saleh, being around guys like Pete Carroll, and Kyle Shanahan, I think that has inspired him to know that he can do it too. And so that's why I think that, I would be surprised. Put it this way: I would be surprised if Robert Saleh is offered a head coaching job anywhere in the NFL next season and he turns it down. That's my opinion. Let's see here. Defensive line was finally getting pressure on the quarterback at the end of the game. Yeah, that's part of, a lot of that is, the circumstances of the game. 49ers knew that the running game was not going to be a factor, as the Falcons fell behind by 10 points. Saleh has earned himself a second chance. Yeah, I think, he's definitely, like I said, he's definitely on that radar. No doubt about it. Let's see. With the Flyers taking out an insurance policy on Bosa, do you know if we have to use that $8 million this year? I don't know how that works exactly with the insurance policy. I know that's something that the NFL allows teams to do, but generally speaking, unused salary cap space from one year carries over to the following year. And that next year carries over to the year after that, and on and on and on. D'Amico might be available for the job next year. I don't know. I haven't heard anything along those lines. I think D'Amico Ryans is a very well-respected coach, period. Head coach, coordinator, all of the above. Let's see. What else do we have here? There we go. Let's see. What else do we have here? A lot of Robert Saleh comments. Saleh might and should be picky on what team he goes to. Well, there were a couple jobs, I think, at the end, at the end of the hiring cycle last year. One was Jacksonville, and Saleh was reportedly one of the final two guys for that job, and he was interested in that job when Trent Baalke was the general manager. So, I don't know this for certain, but he remained in the hunt for that job, with Trent Baalke as a general manager. Liam Cohen, who was the Jaguars' number one pick for that job, took his name out of the running when Trent Baalke was a general manager, and basically pressured Jacksonville management to fire Baalke in order for him to get back in the running for that job. And then that's how that all transpired. So if Saleh was, in the mix for the Jacksonville Jaguars job, which at that point was not considered a very good job, then I kind of stand, or my belief is that, if Robert Saleh gets a head coaching opportunity, he's going to take it. The thing about head coaching opportunities in the NFL is you never know when those jobs are going to become available. You never know when you're going to have an opportunity to be a head coach. And if you don't accept an offer when you have that opportunity, you just don't know if you're ever going to get that opportunity. And if you thing about it is, if you become a head coach and you fail and you're fired after 1, 2, 3, 4 years, whatever, you will always, because your track record, have an opportunity to go back to becoming a defensive coordinator. However, the same cannot always be said that you will always have another opportunity to become a head coach. So that's what I'd say on that. Let me just okay. Just checking some personal text messages there. Let's see here. Saleh will do the Ben Johnson and select his choice of jobs. He'll do the interviews to keep his name out there. KCD Thrilla 71 says, smash that like and share, subscribe button. Matt's a hard worker and great provider of sound, valuable information. Well, thank you, Quesadilla. Thank you. As of this point, he says, or she says, Quesadilla. I'll just Quesadilla Thrilla 71. 149 people watching. Only 15 likes. Come on, let's get those likes up there. Let's see here. If Saleh takes another head coaching job, he should only leave for a top team. Here we go. Saleh has one more chance to be a head coach. It really has to be close to a perfect opportunity. Hope he stays another year. York should open up the checkbook. Well, I think they open up the checkbook quite handsomely in order to bring him in as defense coordinator this time. Saleh is already the highest paid defense coordinator in the league. Saleh won't leave because of the money. He will leave for a good head coaching job. Could see Saleh to the Raiders. Yeah, I don't know. Raiders. Hey, KCD Thrilla. Thank you very much for that kind gift. I appreciate that very much. Sandwiches on you today. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. Let's see here. Cleveland, let's see. McDaniel could be coming back. Yeah, that's a good question. Well, it's not a question. It's a statement. Mike McDaniel coming back to the 49ers. I don't necessarily see that because here's why. Is that I think there were opportunities for Mike McDaniel to leave the 49ers previously, but Kyle Shanahan blocked that move. And if I were Mike McDaniel going from a non-play calling offensive coordinator in name to the Dolphins and then running that side of the show and being the head guy, and it certainly appears this way that Mike McDaniel won't be around too much longer as a Dolphins head coach. Maybe he finishes out the season, whatever the case may be. But it just seems like, man, they're leaking oil in a big way. If you're McDaniel, well, heck, he could be the offensive coordinator under Robert Saleh. If Saleh goes somewhere else, I would think that McDaniel would not want to come back to the 49ers and be back in that role as a non-play calling offensive coordinator. And frankly, that's a job right now that Clay Kubiak has with the team. And I think the way the offense is functioning, and obviously Kyle Shanahan would know more about this as far as how he sees the weekly process of how they go about putting together a game plan and all that. I wouldn't imagine, I can't imagine that there's a scenario where Shanahan demotes or fires Clay Kubiak after this season. So I I kind of think that the best thing, well, not kind of, I absolutely think the best thing for Mike McDaniel is to not return to the 49ers as a non-play calling offensive coordinator. And anyone who ever suggests that Kyle Shanahan should give up play calling duties, I just kind of like immediately dismiss that suggestion, because if you ask anybody around the league who the best play callers are in the NFL, universally, one of the first names out of off the tongue is Kyle Shanahan. And it might not be the number one guy, but two or three probably in that top three. And it's something that he enjoys. It's something he's good at. It's why he became the head coach of the 49ers in the first place. And it's why the 49ers have routinely been a top 5, top 10 offense in the NFL. So if I were McDaniel, I think I would want to branch out. I'd want to go somewhere, succeed outside of that Shanahan umbrella, and prove that is an offensive coordinator who can run his own ship and who can call plays and put together an offense. So that's the question about McDaniel could be coming back. Will Arizona be looking for a coach again? I did mention them, right? Yeah, I mean, Arizona, I think Jonathan, oh yeah, I ended with Aaron Glenn. Jonathan Gannon, I think, is a good coach, but man, it looks like the same old Arizona Cardinals, competitive as heck. But now they're on a 5-game losing streak, not just a 5-game losing streak. They lose by 1 point to the 49ers. They lose by 3 points to Seattle, 1 point to Tennessee, and what very well could be the worst loss in the history of professional football. If you remember how they lost that game, it was mind-boggling. And then they lose to 4 points against Indianapolis. Turns out they're a pretty good team. And also 4 points to the Packers. So let's see how this thing plays out with Jonathan Gannon and the Arizona Cardinals. But could they be looking for a head coach? It depends on what's going on inside that building. If the season goes on, and there's so much that you can tell. Sometimes a 5-12 season, there's growing optimism as the season goes on. Sometimes with a 5-12 season, you know that it's over and there's no use heading down that same direction any longer. One other team I should mention for potential coaching change, and I don't know how realistic it is, or even if they're close to this, but Cincinnati Bengals with Zach Taylor. Certainly, there's not much they can do now. Joe Flacco's done a good job coming in, but with Joe Burrow out, but that would be a situation too. What I stated earlier still stands about Robert Saleh, definitely head coaching material. Should probably be a head coach in 2026. The question is, when push comes to shove, will any owner or general manager want to go in that direction when it might just be more of an organizational philosophy with a young quarterback, theoretically speaking? Some of these young quarterbacks will be in need of a new head coach. We already know who those players are. Others, they might be guys who have yet to join their respective organizations. So, but Arizona possibility, and Cincinnati, I guess, a possibility as well. Okay, so I did talk a lot about. I see a lot of questions about McDaniel here, where I'm going through this. Teams that fell off because of injury, the Ravens maybe. I don't see the Ravens changing their head coach unless John Harbaugh is ready to move on. I mean, he's just been so successful, so consistent. I don't see that. Can't see the Ravens moving on from him. Let's see here. Can Saleh be head coach and Shanahan move to OC? Yeah, no, that's not happening in a million years. Oh, thank you, Lander Film. Very nice of you. That's a very nice. And let's see the comment here. Bob and Kyle have coached 3 Sandlot kids to a 5-2 record. I don't think I've ever seen it equal in terms of draft class and coaching. Have you? Well, through 7 games, a lot of football to play, But what they've shown this season has been very, very impressive. No question about it. And it's the structure inside the organization. It's bringing in the right kinds of people. It's coaching, figuring out how to get through to the players, how to make them better, how to put them in positions to win games. Again, the sample size is small, 7 games, but it has been very impressive to watch. And it's been kind of a roller coaster too, because just as an impartial observer watching it, the loss to Jacksonville was kind of like, oh boy, no Bosa, no pass rush, no Purdy, no this, no that. Season is going to be going downhill. And then the win over the Rams, which was an amazing victory. And then the loss to Tampa Bay and seeing Fred Warner go down. And now the team's at a crossroads. And then they respond with a solid showing against the Falcons. And so it's kind of been this, let's see how this season kind of evens out. We've already had, the highs and the lows and where's it going to kind of level out, and we get to see, what this team is already about. But shout out Lander Film. Thank you so much for the generous gift. And it's been impressive to watch, and we'll just see where it goes from here. That's the great thing about the NFL is, that's a great reality show. You don't know from one week to the next what you're going to get. It's so high, or it's so difficult for teams to stay at high levels. And then the teams that you think are really bad, they'll jump up and win a game and surprise everybody. And then they're back down the next week. So we'll see where the 49ers kind of level out here and see what this team is all about. Here we go. This is a good question from VO. I could see KJ Wright or Daniel Bullock being the next defensive coordinator. What do you think? The great observations. And I would say, yeah, I could see that. I think KJ Wright is somebody who you could be not only a coordinator, but maybe a CEO type, a head coach. And when I talk about Gus Bradley, I think that's kind of, the coordinator in waiting, unless somebody else proves that, he would be like kind of the not the fallback, but certainly the placeholder guy that's like, okay, be fine with Gus Bradley as the coordinator, unless somebody else proves to be and is even better. So I like those names, KJ Wright and Daniel Bullock. I think they're both really good coaches. Maybe they can pay Saleh what they pay Shanahan. Yeah, I doubt that. What else do we got here? Few Gus Bradley questions. I'm just trying to go through it here. We're ready. Holy cow, I'm ready. An hour or no, I'm 39 minutes into this. This started at 10:30, right? Oh yeah, P Red says, okay, he's here, so let's start over. Okay, I'll just replay the first 39 minutes of what I was talking about. The Texans situation is what Matt is talking about here. Stroud needs a strong play caller, but if the play caller is not an OC, then the team will be limited. You know what's interesting is that, by the way, I didn't think Baker Mayfield was very good at all. He missed a lot of throws, wide open guys that should have been touchdowns. I thought he was very, very average. No, below average. Um, CJ Stroud, after his rookie season, what happened to him? Um, Jaden Daniels doesn't seem to be as good as he was. Who else? Are there some other guys that it just looks like it's difficult to play quarterback in the NFL. I think everybody can agree on that. And it's even more difficult to have a good second season when your first season in the NFL was really good. So it's that consistency um, that really separates the guys from the others. And so yeah, that's the thing that really stood out on Monday was just how Baker Mayfield could look so good against the 49ers and look, frankly, so bad last night against the Detroit Lions. Did you guys see the same thing? I mean, it just didn't look to me like either he was injured or just completely off his game. I mean, I don't know what his completion percentage was, but it just looked like um, he just had no idea where the ball was going. I mean, the ball was flying out of his hand, but it was almost as if he had no idea where that thing was going. Um, let's see, what do we got here? Matt needs to learn how go to the super chats on look for good questions. Oh, yeah. How do I do that? How do I go to super chats to look for good questions? I don't even know what that means. uh, minority picks for Saleh if he leaves, right? No. That's another question from KCDA, who, by the way, thank you again for that nice gift. The 49ers would only get compensatory picks, special compensatory picks, if Saleh is with the team for 2 seasons before leaving for a head coaching job. Maybe they pay him. Maybe that's the thing. Maybe they do pay him huge money to stay another year, and then after 2 years, it's like, okay, see ya. Go get another job. Let's see here. Miami, Jets, Titans, Cardinals, and other teams need Saleh. Titans openly want Saleh. He's gonzo after this season. How the heck was Eddie Pinheiro still available? Well, a lot of it was he could have had opportunities to sign with other teams, but there was no reason for him to sign with another team. And I mean, he could, as a free agent, pick where he wanted to go. And as clearly one of the best 32 kickers in the league, he knew that he was going to have some opportunities. And he waited after week 1 to figure all that out. And he was about 2 hours away from boarding a plane to go to sign with the Atlanta Falcons. And John Lynch called and said, don't get on that plane. We want you to come to San Francisco. And he was like, okay, let's do that instead. So that's how Eddie Pinheiro remained available 1 week into the season. Robert Saleh will be the coach of the Cleveland Browns and Las Vegas Raiders. I don't know how he can coach 2 teams at once. So it was Saleh and Kevin Stefanski as the final 2 for that Browns job. So that would have been January or February of 2020, I believe. I think that's right. I think it was when the 49ers were going through their Super Bowl season of 2019. That's when Stefanski was Saleh. And the reason they hired Stefanski over Saleh was because of the offensive bent. That at that point, I can't remember who the Browns quarterback was then. Had to be a young guy, right? Can't remember who it was. Usually I remember stuff like that. But that was the dilemma. And if you recall, I think it was that season, wasn't it, that the 49ers did a number? Oh, it had to be Baker Mayfield, right? I think it was that season where the 49ers did a number on the Cleveland Browns, and everybody thought, oh my gosh, Saleh proved that he's a better coach than Stefanski. But then the Browns went with Stefanski. Why? Because they wanted an offensive-minded head coach. Let's see here. If I'd rather be let's see here. A lot of Eddie Pinheiro questions. I love it. Or just comments. I think people like Eddie Pinheiro. I'm getting that. I'm getting that idea. What's a belief? What's your belief for return to play for all their injured players? Everybody should be back except for obviously Nick Bosa and Fred Warner. And I still don't know exactly what's going on with Brandon Ayuk. I just don't know for certain that he's going to be with the 49ers this season. Shanahan said, he's thinking around week 10. It just seems to me that if the injury, which now has been more than a year since he got injured, well, I guess it's the same week as last season. So I forget the exact date that he was injured last year. But I just don't know what they can expect from Brandon Ayuk for the rest of the year. But everybody else should be back. All their injured players should be back at some point. That includes Brock Purdy. He's not on injured reserve. I don't know if anybody's asked this question. Somebody asked me the other day about why didn't they just put Brock Purdy on injured reserve? Because they might end up losing him for 4 weeks anyway. And I think the idea was there's really nothing to gain from putting him on injured reserve. It's not like he's taking a roster spot for a player, who could be up on game days. They can still bump up 2 players from the practice squad for every game. But I think the idea was to keep him available to practice. If you go on injured reserve, you cannot step on the practice field and practice with the team for those 4 weeks until you open that practice window. So I think the idea was that he would be able to play before the 4 weeks, but also even if he weren't, at least he'd be able to go through limited practice, do the reps, see the game, and also as part of the physical therapy involved. So that's why the 49ers opted not to put him on injured reserve and just go, we're shutting him down for 4 weeks. 49ers are the number 2 seed in the NFC. That is correct. Let's see here. Are adding any defensive players from the Jets? I would imagine the question is it possible to add any defensive players from the Jets? Yeah, the question is, would the Jets do that? My daughter's calling me. I'm going to have to tell her that I'm busy talking to people here, my subscribers. Hey, by the way, if you're watching this and you haven't already, please subscribe. I shouldn't be saying this. I shouldn't be calling out my daughter on a YouTube live, but Sunday before I went to the game or went to the studio, she informed us via laptop, email, or text that she was on Amtrak or some train and dropped her phone. Yeah, you got it. In the toilet. That's a rough one. I mean, you don't go dumpster diving for that one. So phone lost, and then some major issues trying to get a new phone and getting all the stuff that was on her phone, including all cards and everything else, moved over to a new phone. So I should probably call her. I wonder how she was calling me to come. I wonder if she got a new phone. Maybe she got a new phone. Hey, breaking news here on this YouTube live. Maybe I should go talk to her and see what's up. There was something. Oh, the 49ers. So quickly here, I did ask Shanahan because I've been saying this, but I hadn't asked him specifically. My idea was, or my thought was, after the injuries to Bosa and Warner, you cannot trade away valuable assets for the future in order for the short-term gain of today. In other words, you got to be really, I mean, if you're going to be trading away a 2026 draft pick, it needs to be for a guy who is going to be on the team more than just for the final few games of this season to play out this season. It has to be somebody who's under contract for the rest of this year and one more year, right? At least. Also, I'm not sure you can take on a big salary because that salary, every dollar spent this year is a dollar you can't spend for the future with the salary cap. And we all know the Flair salary cap situation with all these big contracts. Well, for Brian and Ayuk, whether he's on the roster or it's dead money, McCaffrey, Kittle, Williams, Warner, Bosa, Lenore. Did I say Purdy? Purdy. If I didn't already, if I did already mention him, might as well mention him twice. So, I think we'll be looking to add not a guy like Trey Hendrickson, picking up a $10 million salary for half the year and giving up a valuable draft pick and only having him for the rest of this season. I don't see that. And then, when you start talking about, but they could get a compensatory pick, when he leaves as a free agent. Yeah, true. But that compensatory pick would be in the 2027 draft. And then that would only be something if the 49ers just don't sign anybody in free agency, which, again, I wouldn't expect them to be free agent players this offseason. They've kind of held firm by and large to a draft and develop type of mentality. Okay, I'm just going to zip through here. But yeah, I would think if you're looking at Jets or Titans, any teams that are really bad, first thing is look at the contract status and probably rule out any player who's only signed through this season. Look for a player that is on a deal this year and next year. Jermaine Johnson is a guy for the Jets, but I think that's a fifth-year option type of thing where next year his salary is like $13 million, something along those lines. And so that would be kind of difficult just because of the cost of what he would count against the cap next year. Let's see here. Boy, we got a lot of comments. Thanks again. Thanks so much for everybody who's tuning into this YouTube live. Again, subscribe if you haven't already. Leave a comment whenever or whatever. Do like, right? All that stuff. I know I'm supposed to say that stuff. Saleh is not a leader of men or Shanahan is not a leader of men like Saleh. Well, I would disagree with that. I think Kyle Shanahan is a very good leader. I mean, I could give you example after example after example of his leadership and the way he crafts messages to the team. I think he's proven to be a very strong leader. Let's see here. I think that is probably, I'm just going to zip through this here. Okay, so I think I'm going to wrap this up. Hey, thank you everybody for tuning in. Boy, there's a lot of comments here. Sorry I didn't get to all of this, but oh, is this true? Come on, Matt. The Cleveland Tigers lost to the Columbus Panhandlers in 1926. That was the worst loss in history. That's a hard one to argue with. It's a really hard one to argue with. Just because I would not even know how to begin to argue against that. All right, folks. Thank you so much. I'm still going through it. Oh man, a lot of comments. Again, thanks for everybody for sticking it out. Nearly an hour. But whenever there's a phone in the toilet, that kind of deserves my attention. Tony Nagatani thank you so much for that gift. That's very nice of you. And because you popped up here on my screen, Nick Martin was a good rushing the passer in college. Do you think Saleh will look at us using him on third down situationals and edge in lieu of Huff? Um, Perhaps. Now that Nick Martin has a uniform on game days, um, it does open the possibility of trying to find certain packages to use him in. 49ers have been more inventive, more creative in using personnel groupings on defense this year than any year I can remember, probably out of necessity. When we think about the safeties, how they're using the safeties now, it'll be Malik Mustafa as the full-time starting safety. It looks like Jair Brown has kind of locked in that other safety spot. And then Jason Pinnock has been the big nickel. Marquis Siegel has seen a lot of action. Are they going to find packages for him too? So could it be that as the season goes on and Nick Martin kind of finds his way and figures out how he's needed, and the 49ers coaching staff figures out what's best, how best to use him? Could that be that he finds himself contributing on defense? Absolutely. I could see that. Okay, I'm just going to go through here and see if there's anything else pops up. Okay, I think this is a good place to end. All right. Well, thanks again, everybody, for watching this video. It's been fun. I've been now doing this YouTube thing for more than a year, and I'm enjoying the immediacy of it. Way to connect and just kind of share my thoughts on basically a daily basis. So again, thanks to everybody for watching. And as I often say, that is it for now.